everyone? Welcome back to this episode of Just Another Year Chicago. My name is Nick Brody. I am joined alongside my good friend and co-host Tony Sapita, and today we are discussing how the Chicago Bears, who are sitting at 3-6, are graded as a team, and the overall performance of how the Chicago Bears are doing.
Yeah, we're talking about who's performing well, who needs to improve, and honestly, if they can turn this around. So with that, we're going to jump into our first topic, which is the offense as a whole. So I'll start off with the overall rankings, that I'll kind of go into my grade. So the overall ranking, 31st. We talked about it kind of every week, but this is an improvement already because we're not last anymore.
We're not last.
not 32nd in the league. It took a massive game by Justin Fields to change that. Our passing is ranked still 32nd, but it's much better than it was probably coming into this week. Rushing is 6th overall, which is awesome. We all know that we have probably arguably one of the best backfields in the NFL. Points per game, 30th, which is an improvement as well, because, we almost scored 30 points this week, which is crazy. So kind of what I rated them a C- overall. Yes, that game against the Steelers was an awesome offensive performance in the second half, but they seem to just kind of do the same thing over and over. And obviously we're 3-6. We haven't won games. That's it. We just haven't won a ton of games. So we start out slow in the first half, and then we frantically try to come back in the second half. And clearly we haven't done a great job of it, considering we're 3 games below 500. Our running attack is awesome. So, I mean, they're the ones really bolstering this C- stat. Their passing game has just been so horrendous, and just kind of the offensive line, and we'll get into the specifics of it, but that's kind of what went into my C-. They're a below average offense overall. However, last game was awesome. The end of last game was awesome. And it makes me excited for the future.
And I got to agree with you on the C-. Listen, they're not the best in the league, and you kind of said that yourself, but they also have, they would have been a D- before the last 2 games. They put up points against San Francisco, which is not an easy defense. They put up points and came back on Monday Night Football in prime time against the Pittsburgh Steelers, 214-0-1 at home when leading in the fourth quarter. So at home. So overall, you have a young core also with Larry Borom, James Daniels, Teven Jenkins, Cole Kmet, Darnell Mooney, David Montgomery, Herbert, and Justin Fields. Like, when Nagy is gone, which he's going to be gone after this year, I'm sorry. Like, I'm actually not sorry. I think Bears fans can cheer in the comments if they're going to be happy about that. But once they have overall leadership and they have a better overall offensive scheme, this team is really going to take off, and they have a young core to do it. So let's start talking about that young core, the offensive line. I'm going to give them a C. Now, hear me out. They're not the best in the league, but they're not the worst in the league. PPF even actually ranked them 22nd after week 10 or entering week 10. They would have been a D- before the last 2 games as well. They would have been a D- before that. But everyone thought that Justin Fields and Andy Dalton was going to get sacked every single play of the game. There was no run game. There would be no run game because of no offensive line. We're the 6th ranked rushing offense. We have a super young backfield. We have a great 1-2 punch now. And our backs are really good. So they make plays for themselves, but you do need an offensive line in order to do that. So Larry Borom also looks like an absolute steal in the 5th round. He has only 1 sack and 2 quarterback pressures against TJ Watt, and then 1 sack against Nick Bosa, which is extremely impressive by any offensive lineman. So overall, it's just great. I mean, actually, I'm sorry. He actually didn't even really let up that sack against Nick Bosa. It was really Alex Bars, but it technically went on him because it was on his side. But, James Daniel and Cody Whitehair, one of the better interior linemen in the NFL. So overall, I give them a C. They're average of the pack, and they're not as bad as we thought they
were. I think it's a very fair grade. If this was framed differently and it was, how are they playing, grade how they're playing, how maybe you would have expected it, especially with Jason Peters coming off a fishing boat, being a starting tackle and everything. Like, I would have probably given them, B+, especially for these last couple of games. But if we're grading just in general how they did, I went C-, so slightly below average, slightly below what you did. And that's just because, like you said, they would definitely be a D if it weren't for the last 2 games, because the last 2 games have been really good. They've just had such, and, you can blame Nagy for not scheming, away from the weaknesses, but like that Browns game was just so
horrible.
Bad. I can't let it go. The Rams, they did well against the Rams, but that was Nagy. Actually, I got to give him credit. He did a good job of scheming Andy Dalton. I wouldn't say open. I just keeping him alive, I guess, against Aaron Donald. So there was just some big glaring, I guess, mistakes, bad games. So Sam Mustipher is not what he used to be. That's for sure. I know he, Nick, you weren't happy about
rough year so far.
Yeah, you weren't happy, especially in that Steelers game. I know he wasn't great. So shout out Jason Peters though for being almost 40. I know I just kind of dogged him a little bit, but he's only allowed 17 QB pressures from left tackle from the blind side. So
very impressive, especially against some tough defenses.
Yeah. Oh yeah, 100%. And so C-, they're not above average. We would be wrong to say they're above average. Average, I think, is fair. I just, maybe I'm a little harsher on them, but that's my grade for the offensive line. So speaking of the catching offensive linemen, you can call them the tight ends. So we'll go into their grade. I said a D+. I may be harsh. It would have been an F if it weren't for the Steelers game. I would have given them a straight up F. Started off okay. Again, preface, they didn't use them. They didn't throw to the tight ends. And no, I know, Nick, you're going to get into that more. But we've seen passes to Kmet, to Jimmy Graham. Even 2 nights ago against the Steelers, Jimmy Graham dropped a touchdown. And I know, you can say he was getting held maybe a little, whatever it was. He should have, he should be better. That's the main point.
You love the tight ends. I love the tight ends.
And it sucks because Nagy and Bill Lazor a little bit too. Obviously, he's using them now. Like, they have skewed this grade. You can't give him an A or, for what we've seen so far. And Cole Kmet is the future, which is awesome. Excited for that. He's picked it up. Obviously, that one of the best throws we've ever seen a Chicago Bears quarterback make, I'd say, was to Cole Kmet and also to Jimmy Graham, which is cool. So,
tight ends, tight ends, they're back, baby. Yeah, I gotta, I know you gave him a D+. I'm gonna give him a little bit nicer of a grade. I'm gonna give him a C-. And again, they don't use them, or they haven't used them at least till the last 2 weeks. Jimmy Graham's back from the COVID protocol, but when they do, good things happen. And, I wish they would use Jimmy Graham more because he is better than Cole Kmet in arguably a lot of ways. Experience, knowledge, just able to make it happen. He was our best red zone. In fact, our best, receiver last year for the Chicago Bears. Why would you not use that anymore? Especially for a rookie quarterback who needs a big body to go up and grab it. So, you look what happened in the Steelers game. He had a touchdown taken away from him because of the flag, of course, because everything was taken away from the Bears because of penalties. But overall, I give them a C-. Now let's go to the guys who are, a little bit more speedsters, the actual wide receivers on this team that aren't blocking. I'm going to give them a C. And the reason why I give them a C, I know we're not giving the greatest grades right now, but the Bears are pretty average in regards, with all things considered. The Bears are average on the offensive side of the ball. Until last game, in most areas, there's one area where Tony and I are just, everyone's passing, skipping a grade level because they're so good. Until last game, I feel Allen Robinson really hasn't done much. And again, he got hurt at the end of that game against Pittsburgh. So kind of something to keep out for Bears fans, but nor were the Bears using any of their wide receivers correctly. So you can't blame Allen Robinson for his decline compared to last year's numbers. But overall, like deep routes with a fast group, bam, are going to lead to 9 big-time plays on primetime television against a very tough Steelers defense. According to PPF, 9 big-time plays by Justin Fields and the wide receivers. So that's huge. Keep throwing the ball. Keep throwing them to your speedsters. They're going to go up and get it. If they do what they did against the Steelers, I think the difference in play of the wide receivers is what's going to help the Bears sneak into the playoffs. So, Tony, where do you have the wide receivers sitting at?
I have a C-. Again, slightly below average. I know we're not, I know we'd probably do better if we were saying, A triple plus or F-, but like you said, they're just an average football team. Like they're average to below average, you could argue. And you also said it, you can't totally blame them again, because the play calling skews so much of this on the season so far. Hopefully against the Steelers, that second half of the Steelers is what we can, maybe continue to see, or even that 49ers game, two games in a row. That's a trend. That's a winning streak, except they lost both. But they're having chances where they can scramble, like, the scramble drill when Justin Fields gets out of the pocket. And then he finds Darnell Mooney in the corner. That was the second probably best throw a Chicago Bears quarterback has ever made. So they make their own plays. I will say they've done that. Allen Robinson has finally gotten open a little bit more. There's been drops. There's absolutely been drops. It started at Justin Fields' first game he was in against the Bengals. Allen Robinson right through his hands. Darnell Mooney's dropped a couple. I don't know they're slightly below average. It is
so
what it is.
So it's and with the frustration that you're getting from there. I know you said we don't give triple A pluses, but let's go to the next group in regards to, you're giving a double A plus to the next group. I see you have written down.
Yeah. So I was just trying to think of the highest possible grade I could give a group, which was A plus is what I have. And it totally wasn't me looking at Nick's grade and just adding an extra plus. Well, that's a little teaser for you guys. But they are the only consistently good position on.
And this is the running
team.
back group, by the way.
This is the running back group, is what I should have said when we're going into it, or maybe I was teasing into it. I was going to leave you a little suspense, but the running back group is the only consistently good position on this team. The depth is insane. Even when Damian Williams was playing, he was playing well. They don't even have Tariq Cohen out there, to mix it up with kind of a little scat back, a little, kind of open up the field. They just, they run the ball very, honestly, not even very, there's no frills about it. There's really no deception for the most part. They just run the ball up the middle with Montgomery or Khalil Herbert, and it works. Montgomery does not get tackled when he's not injured, obviously. And Khalil Herbert is just out there trying his hardest. And that's all you can ask for, because he is putting up numbers. They have total rushing yards on the season, 1,229. That's like as much as I think that's only 5 times less than the wide receiver, our leading career wide receiver, whose name escapes me, but he only has 5,000 career receiving yards. So that's how many receiving or rushing yards we have halfway through the season. That was a fun stat I pulled out of nowhere. Nick, what do you think about the running back position?
So I'm going to give him an A plus because I didn't know we were going over that, but I'd give him an A plus if that was the case. No pun intended. The running backs group has carried and is still carrying this offense throughout the season. And, Justin Fields is starting to heat up. Like, totally understand that. He showed that against the Steelers. I mean, we saw what the future is, and that's what's great. But the running back group, we're seeing that right now. David Montgomery and Khalil Herbert, Khalil Herbert could be steal of the year. Shout out to Ryan Pace for another fantastic late round pick. And Montgomery looks like his normal self 3 weeks after sustaining a pretty serious injury against a tough Steelers defense. So just keep running the damn ball. That's all I got to say to that. I'm very excited about this wide receiver or running back group. Sorry about that. But let's go into our final part of the offense that we want to hit on really fast is the quarterbacks. And I'm going to give them a C plus with all things considered. You had 2 different quarterbacks. You had one that got thrown into the fire, a rookie quarterback that got thrown into the fire after your starter veteran and Andy Dalton got injured. And Justin Fields is doing a fine job for what he's given, especially with the offensive scheme that they have. So Andy Dalton was doing fine. I think the Bears could have slipped into the playoffs with Dalton still. But overall, I love him as a mentor and a friend, and just his overall leadership to Justin Fields. He's really taking the roles at that position as a leader for the young quarterback for the future. And he's getting paid $10 million to do it. And it's only 1 year. So he's doing the best he can without playing. And Justin Fields is really starting to blossom. Nearly 1/4 of his passing yards came in the second half of the Pittsburgh Steelers game, which is kind of sad to say the least, but, he's doing a really good job. And now that he has game connections with his wide receivers, primetime game connections with his offensive line and wide receivers, and just the overall offense, I'm very excited for Justin Fields, and I give him a C plus.
I think it's a very fair grade. I wrote down B plus. I do want to pull it back to a B. That was a little, again, recency bias. It was just so good against the Steelers. He truly deserved to win that game. But obviously it's been growing pains. He's a rookie. It is what it is. Like, that's what we have seen the last game and a half. The second half of the Steelers game and that game against the 49ers is progression. And that's all you can ask for. So this grade, almost like those other grades, I'm disappointed in some of those groups. This, I am very happy to give anything above an F for a Chicago Bears quarterback. I actually do agree with you that I think Andy Dalton could have at least, kind of captain maneuvered this team into playoff position. I do think he would have, he just doesn't make too many mistakes. But like I said, Justin Fields has progressed. And I think that was kind of where my B grade came from. It's not necessarily overall performance, which has been great again the last 2 games, but it has been the fact that he continues to get better every week. And that's all you can ask for. Also, Johnny Morris, that is the Bears' leading career wide receiver from 1958 to 1967 he played. That's tough. We need better receivers in general. So first, before we go into the defense, you want to talk about stupid car trade, Nick?
Yeah, just quick. Our advertisement for this episode is Stupid Car Tray. Use code BOGO now, BOGO me now to get buy one, get one on the Classic Series. Great holiday gifts shipped within 24 hours of your order being placed. So don't worry about those logistics issues that you hear about. So great gift overall. Just get after it and get your Stupid Car Tray today. Tony, let's go into the defense.
Yeah, so we'll start with the overall rankings. The overall ranking is 13th. So yards per game, 13th. Their passing defense is 10th. Rushing defense is 22nd. Points per game, 21st. So, obviously the rushing defense and points per game is below average. However, their passing defense, which honestly that ranking kind of surprised me, is above average. Yards per game also above average. And overall ranking above average, if we're saying 15 is average. I guess it'd be 16 would be average.
16, yes.
Yes. Overall grade I give them is a C. I may be a little harsh because of the last couple, defenses we've had in the past couple of years. Their average, they're fine. They're great. They're absolutely great at times. That Bengals game was one of the greatest defensive games I've ever watched with the 3 straight interceptions of Joe Burrow. But then there's times they're horrific. And that's going back to that Rams game. And they weren't great against the 49ers. And I know there was injuries, obviously, but they'll stop. We talk about this every week. They stop them for the first 2, first down, second down. And then there's just some sort of crazy breakdown that leads to whether it's a first down or a big play. And I don't know. It seems, I don't know if it's discipline or whatever it is, but that's why I had to give them a C.
And you know what? I'm going to go a little against you here. I'm going to give him a B-. And with all things considered, B-. Okay. The defense weeks 2 through 6 and last week did so well in every single level of the defense. Secondary, the linebackers, the defensive line, the play calling by Sean Desai was great. But you take away weeks 1, 7, and 8, a lot of zone defense, not a lot of blitz. That was what Pagano looked like, and we lost those games. That's because his defense is not designed like that. Ryan Pace put a team on the field in order to do that. They played a lot of zone, a lot, didn't blitz a lot again during those off weeks. But when they play man-to-mans and they blitz and they put pressure on the quarterback, offensive lines are just terrified of the Chicago Bears because they know the ability to do that. So, I still question Sean Desai's consistency. Sometimes he's a rookie defensive coordinator and he's doing a fantastic job, but you are in that position. So the criticism comes along with it. Still question the consistency at moments. And then will Khalil Mack and Eddie Jackson be back and able to take this to the next level? I think if we would have had both of them against the Pittsburgh team, it would have been a similar game because everyone did step up very well. So the depth is there, which is really good. So let's go to the defensive line. Speaking of Khalil Mack, I'm going to give him a C+. And I know that everyone's like, why? You just complimented how well the defense is doing. Without Khalil Mack, they have struggled most of the time. Last game, people stepped up because they knew they had to. That is the reason they did so well against the Steelers, because people came up. But against the Buccaneers, when Mack was hurt, when against the 49ers, not a lot of pressure on Jimmy Garoppolo. The inconsistencies there, and the injury bug seems to get after it. But shout out Eddie Goldman for that Steelers game. He was everywhere. And I know we've been ripping on Eddie Goldman quite a bit this year, but overall, great job by Eddie Goldman. But this team, I'm going to give them a C+, a little bit above average. They again, like Tony said, great at times, horrific at others. I'm going to give them a C+.
Yeah, I have a C+ as well. I agree with you. Honestly, before the Steelers game, it probably would have been a B-, but I'm fully blaming Robert Quinn for just dragging that grade down. Plus, we don't get a ton of pressure. We haven't been getting a ton of pressure on the quarterback. Obviously, there are certain exceptions to that. Again, that Joe Burrow game, the Bengals game, and Robert Quinn has had a nice season, especially considering his last season with the Bears and for what we're paying him. But they're just overall, I don't think they've got enough pressure, which I think then kind of hurts the DBs and has hurt kind of their passing game. It's not, it's just a C+. It is what it is. I think they're above average. I think they are good enough to be great. And maybe it's because I'm disappointed too, because I think they should have gotten more sacks. They should get more QB pressures. But that's that's just my grade for the defensive line. It's a C+. They could do better. So speaking of who does do better, we can get into the linebackers, who I have graded with a B. It should probably be a B+. I think Danny Trevathan has been a little underwhelming. So I think he kind of drags that down a little, but Roquan himself is an A.
Absolute beast.
Yeah, he he is carrying that linebacker core for sure. I mean, he, like you said about Eddie Goldman, Roquan Smith is everywhere. He's making every tackle, even if the tackle does it, it's not a loss of yards, whatever it is. It's like, okay, 7 yards down the field, he's the one there, just making sure it doesn't become a big play. Right. That's really all you can ask for with that. So what did you think?
So I'm going to go with a B+, and that's because Roquan Smith is tied for first in the league in tackles. Like, he has been absolutely ripping it up with 93 halfway through the season. So you're going to tell me that this guy could potentially have a 180 tackle season? Absolutely, I could see it happening. Roquan Smith for sure is an A++. Alec Ogletree has also been a huge pickup for the Bears, and I am happy when Ogletree was out against the Steelers. That was a huge loss, very low key. And I could see the Bears re-signing him next year and getting rid of Danny Trevathan, because Ogletree would probably go for cheaper. Danny Trevathan's contract is really big. And also, like you said, he's been kind of underwhelming. Great mentor, great reader, great leader for this team, but overall need someone that's going to be able to do both. But they're great at stopping the run, the linebacker group. So overall, I give them a B+. They probably would be in the A range, but I'm not calling out Danny Trevathan too bad. He does bring it down slightly. And Christian Jones too. Christian Jones, I think it's been a solid pickup, but he's not fast like Al Ogletree. So let's go to the guys that are fast on defense. This one should be super quick. The defensive backs, I'm giving them an A, because these guys have done a fantastic job, all things considered, in my opinion, playing zone, playing man, the inconsistency of play, guys getting hurt, no Kyle Fuller, Jaylon Johnson having to be number one. Young group, young, unproven group, and they're doing a great job. And they're definitely holding their own. No matter what the defensive scheme is, teams are struggling to pass against the Chicago Bears, which is not something that you hear about often. Usually you hear the front seven holds down the fort, but you know, the guys in the back holding down the receivers, they're doing a pretty good job.
Yeah, I went a little lower. I wrote down B- here. I'm actually going to change it to a B, because you make a good point that it was a young, unproven group. We didn't know what we were going to do. We lost Kyle Fuller. We lost all those guys. Outside of Eddie Jackson too, they're actually pretty good at tackling, or they've got a lot better at tackling, which I can definitely appreciate. The reason I went with a B, there have been just some horrific blown coverages. And whether that can maybe be put more on Eddie Jackson, because it does seem to tend to be kind of that safety position that's out of position. I don't know what the play call is. Maybe it's not, maybe he is in the right position, but there have been a couple where it unfortunately has to drag it down a little bit from an A for me. But one of the reasons too that I think they've actually looked a little bit worse than they actually are is this next position group, which is special teams, which I think is overall good. I think they're good overall, like I said. But that Buccaneers game was so bad. And then they were bad on all facets, but you just absolutely screwed the defense by, I think it was 2 straight possessions in in Bears territory. They started. Yep. So, I mean, it was just out of reach from there. So that's basically my biggest point, honestly, why it brings it down. Overall, Pat O'Donnell's our best player. Nick, I know you got a couple comments on him.
I just wanted to punt it deeper.
Scales. That's fair. His leg is tired. He's punted it, 10 times a game.
I know. He's a fantastic player. He's a fantastic player. Super, super awesome. Like, he's the longest, Bear overall in this roster. Only guy on the roster not picked up or drafted by Ryan Pace. But I'm giving him a B-. Cairo Santos is making this group not have a D+. Shout out to him for owning the franchise record of 40 consecutive field goals in the row and having to have that end because he was trying to save the game. And he could have saved it. He gave it his all on a 65-yard field goal. He would have hit it if it was 55. And also, TJ Watt was offside. All I have to say to that. So you could have given him a few more yards. You could have given another opportunity. I think they could have gotten another couple yards quickly before that play was over, or tried to get the defense a jump. So overall, shout out to Cairo Santos. Jakeem Grant, the guy that we picked up from Miami for a 6th-round pick. He's cool. He's fast. He's got swag. Minus his fumble, he's done a great job. Joel Olebuniwe has done a great job too. Nice fumble. Great job. DeAndre Houston Carson picking up runs to the house against the Steelers. And, but we need deeper punts from Pat O'Donnell. I know he's tired. I love Pat O'Donnell. Never get rid of him. Make him the next Brad Mayer, who's like on the Bears for 20 years. But overall, get the ball downfield. And also, the defense just needs to rush. The special teams needs to rush after the receiver way faster. Like, you see, like, these guys have at least 10 yards of room. Not a couple years ago, they were like right there, causing fair catches. So that's all I got to say. B- to special teams overall.
My last comment will be one more quick shout out to Pat O'Donnell. He had the play of the game on, I think it was a field goal. It might've been an extra point. when the snap was just, it was
Yes.
low. It was just kind of weird from Patrick Scales. And he had it like it was nothing, put it down. Even Cairo Santos was like, oh, buddy.
They were like, oh.
You are the man. So shout out to him. He's been, because obviously the 40 field goals in a row is amazing by Cairo Santos, but Pat O'Donnell is the one holding it. That argument, we could have a whole episode. That could arguably be one of the hardest positions in all of sports. Because talk about no glory and all the blame. Oh, buddy. But that's all I got for the special teams.
Yeah, so the Bears, that's our grades. That's our grades on every single position overall, position groups. So let us know your thoughts in the comments below. We're very excited to hear it. But with that, thank you very much for joining this episode of Just Another Year Chicago. My name is Nick Brody, joined alongside Tony Spita. We'll see you guys.